Okay, picture this. You wake up tomorrow morning, stretch, get out of bed, and look outside your window expecting just another totally normal day. But suddenly, absolutely everything outside is moving at over 1,600 kilometers per hour. Just a terrifying, violent blur of motion.
Literally within moments, the devastation sets in. Massive, sturdy buildings just instantly collapse as if they're made of toothpicks. Out in the distance, these colossal waves start rising up, ready to swallow entire cities whole. And right above you, the sky rapidly turns completely dark with debris. It sounds exactly like a scene from an over-the-top apocalyptic movie, right? But it's actually exactly what the laws of physics dictate.
So that brings us to the ultimate high-stakes question of our thought experiment today. Could humanity actually survive if the Earth just suddenly stopped spinning? It's a fascinating scenario, and it really forces us to look at the invisible forces keeping us alive every single day. Let's find out.
Part 1. The hidden speed of Earth. So let's dive into this by first getting a grip on our current reality. The Earth never really feels like it's moving, does it? We sit at our desks, we walk outside, and everything feels completely stationary. But if you are standing at the equator right now, you're actually rocketing through space at a staggering 1,670 kilometers per hour. We just don't notice this immense baseline speed because absolutely everything around us, including the atmosphere, is moving at that exact same speed. It's kind of like being in a smooth-flying airplane, you know? You don't feel the speed at all until you suddenly hit the brakes. So, what if Earth instantly hit those brakes? That brings us to part 2, the first catastrophic seconds. If the planet stops spinning in a single, sudden moment, the Earth itself halts, but the momentum of everything on it absolutely does not. Imagine slamming the brakes in a car going 1,000 miles an hour, and you aren't wearing a seatbelt, but on a planetary scale. Because of this totally unchecked momentum, literally anything that isn't securely anchored down to deep bedrock is going to keep moving eastward at incredible speeds. Cars, trees, buildings, and yes, even people would just be violently launched. The result would be one of the most devastating disasters imaginable. The sheer kinetic force would be infinitely stronger than the fastest hurricanes ever recorded. Very few, if any, human-made structures could possibly survive that initial jolt. So, the crucial thing to understand here is the chronological chain reaction of the devastation. First, you get the instant stop, which causes that eastward launch of everything on the surface. But honestly, that's just the beginning. That solid Earth halts immediately transfers its immense kinetic energy straight into the fluids of our planet, triggering mega tsunamis and super hurricanes almost instantly.
Part 3. Unleashing oceans and atmosphere.
Now for the secondary reactions. When the rocky part of Earth stops, the water and the air, they do not. They just keep right on going. Let's look at the oceans first. The oceans would continue surging eastward because of all that massive momentum. We are talking about colossal walls of water, literally hundreds of meters high, just rushing across the continents. Coastal cities all around the world would disappear within hours under this unstoppable force. Entire island nations would just be flooded and completely erased from the map.
And it's definitely not just the water. The atmosphere would keep moving too, creating unearthly winds way faster than 1,500 kilometers per hour. At 1,500 kilometers per hour, the wind basically turns into a physical weapon. These winds would literally strip massive forests straight from the ground, roots and the whole shebang. Any skyscrapers that somehow managed to survive that initial jolt would just be battered to dust and collapse. The sky would instantly fill with a choking mixture of dust, dirt, and debris. Stepping outside, or honestly, even just trying to breathe the outside air, would become nearly impossible. Part 4. A drastic new climate. Okay, let's just assume for a second that some pockets of humanity miraculously managed to survive those horrific first few hours. We'd then enter an era of a drastic new climate. And this perfectly illustrates the mind-bending reality of a stationary Earth. Today, one day and night cycle lasts a very comfortable 24 hours. But without Earth's rotation, the only way the sun would move across our sky is through our year-long orbit around it. This means one single day would stretch out to last an entire year. Think about what that actually means for a minute. You would experience 6 uninterrupted months of blazing daylight, followed by 6 brutal months of complete pitch-black darkness. The sunny side of this newly stationary Earth would just bake under continuous solar radiation, becoming insanely hot. Meanwhile, the dark side would be plunged into a deep freeze. Only a very, very narrow twilight region, that tiny strip right between the boiling light and the freezing dark, might remain even remotely suitable for life to exist. The cascading effects of this global climate chaos would be absolute. Weather patterns, as we know them, completely gone. Many of our current deserts would become even hotter and entirely uninhabitable. The frozen regions on the dark side would expand aggressively across the globe. Rainfall would become entirely unpredictable. Because of these extreme shifts, global agriculture would collapse in almost all parts of the world, which inevitably leads to severe global food shortages affecting billions of people.
And it goes beyond just the climate. The physical map of our world would be completely redrawn. See, Earth right now isn't a perfect sphere. Its rotation actually makes it bulge slightly wider around the equator. If the spinning stopped, that bulge would recede. The world's oceans would slowly migrate away from the equator and pool toward the North and South poles. Because of this, large areas near the equator would suddenly dry up and become land, literally connecting continents. Conversely, coastal regions near the poles would end up completely submerged underwater. Our world geography would be totally unrecognizable.
Part 5. Could humanity actually survive?
So, after analyzing the momentum, the tsunamis, the supersonic winds, and the extreme climate shift, we have to deliver a final verdict. But first, let's clear up a very common myth. People often wonder, if the Earth stopped spinning, would gravity just disappear? Would we all just kind of float away into space? The scientific reality there is a firm no. Gravity would absolutely still exist. The Earth still has its mass, and it would continue orbiting the sun just like it always has. People, animals, and the oceans are not going to float up into space. You'd still be firmly planted on the ground. It's just that life on that ground would be dramatically, terribly different because of the loss of rotation.
So, could we survive? It entirely depends on how the stopping happens. If Earth somehow slowed down gradually over millions of years, evolution and life might actually find a way to adapt to those longer days and shifting oceans. But a sudden, instant stop? No way. The destruction from the momentum, the wings, and the colossal tsunamis in those first few minutes would be utterly catastrophic, causing unimaginable loss of life. It would undoubtedly be the single greatest disaster in the history of our planet.
To wrap this all up, Earth's rotation isn't really something we normally spend our time thinking about. It's just a background fact of life. Yet, every single second of every day, it's silently controlling our weather, it drives the currents of our oceans, it shapes our global climate, and it perfectly dictates the length of our days. Without it, the world we know would simply no longer exist. Which leaves us with this pretty mind-bending final thought to ponder. If the incredibly complex, fragile balance of the world we know depends entirely on a silent 1,600 km/h spin that we can't even feel, what other invisible, perfectly tuned forces are keeping us alive right now, just hiding in plain sight? Thank you for exploring this fascinating thought experiment with me. If you enjoyed this explainer, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more deep dives into the amazing science of our world. Thanks for watching.